Hello, my name is Adam Holman. I'm a sales engineer for Integrated Machinery Systems, your value-added reseller for Markforged 3D printers in Indiana and Illinois. Previously, I recorded a live unboxing of our Mark II and our X7 models in our home office in Itasca, Illinois. After that, I recorded a live unboxing of this Onyx Pro here in our satellite office in the Indianapolis area. My goal tonight is to pick up where that video left off and put this machine together. The Markforged support page does a really good job of explaining step by step what it takes to put this machine together and get it up and running. I do know sometimes it's a little bit easier to watch somebody else do it. So since I had to put this machine together, I figured I would just go ahead and record it and see what happened. I've done this twice before, so I'm by no means an expert, and we'll see what happens. So out of the box, there's really only a handful of components that need to actually be physically installed onto the machine. Number one is the build plate. Number two is the power cord. Number three is the tube that runs from the machine to the dry box. Number four is the Wi-Fi antenna. And number five is optional. This is just a printer cable in case your Wi-Fi isn't very good. So here you see the back side of the machine and all the ports that are included. You've got the socket for the Wi-Fi antenna. You've got a USB port, which I'm not sure what you can all do with that other than use it for a hard reset if something goes seriously wrong. There's an Ethernet port, printer cable port, power cord port, on-off switch, and this is where the material is going to go in from the dry box. You may be wondering why there's post-it notes stuck to the back side of it. I'm sure that Markforged is doing everything they can for internet security. That being said, this is a cloud-based machine, and that is the machine ID and access code underneath there. And I didn't think it was a good idea to just broadcast that everywhere. So that's why you see the post-it notes. I'm going to go ahead and install this stuff so you can see what it looks like with it all put together. So as far as I can tell, this is the only point in the entire installation where you're actually going to need a tool. The reason for that is these two zip ties tie this upper carriage to the build plate support, and you're going to need to cut those off. Now, it's going to take a pretty sizable set of pinchers to get those off. Ask me how I know. The reason I know is because on take one, I could not get it with these. So since I don't have anything in between, I'm using this ridiculous set to get these off. Number one goal here is to cut these and nothing else. Next, you're going to need to take this tube, pull it through a little farther, and install it in that connector. Next, we're going to take the other end of the tube that we just installed on the printer side and put it right here into this port. If you took this plug and put it in your dry box, there it is. Now, something that I learned at training at Markforged is that painter's tape is your friend. And the reason for that, this is one of them, because you do not want to lose that plug. I'm going to tape that on the inside later. But all we're going to do is take the other end and stick it in this port. Like that. So here I've got the print head pushed out of the way so that you can see where the build plate rests. There are these three spots right here that correspond to these buttons. There's three of these on the bottom of this build plate. These three spots right here raise and lower so that you can adjust your Z, tilt, and get a flat part. You want to take these three pads and make sure that these little plates are flush before you put your build plate in. And when you do that, make sure that you don't back those thumb screws out too far because they will fall out and they are not the easiest to put back in. So now that we've got those 3 pads leveled, we're ready to install the build plate. When the motors are not trying to move the build plate up and down, or there's no power on it, I've been told it's okay to take this support and push it down like this. When you do that, and open this up, take your build plate and install it. Again, there's these 3 buttons under here, as well as these 2 half circles that will engage the back rails and those 3 leveling pads that we just looked at before. So this is a portion of the installation where I have a slight disagreement with Markforged. They want you to set up and load the plastic, and then set up and load the fiber, and then level the print bed. When you do that, the nozzles get hot, and then you have to wait for them to cool down before you can actually use the shims and level the bed. I like to level the bed first and then go back and set up and load the plastic. And that's what I'm going to do. Feel free to follow their instructions. It will work. You're just going to have to wait for the nozzles to cool back down. So at this point, we're going to run the shim bed level utility. Select the menu, bed level, shim bed level. So what this is saying is do not lean on the machine. You can tweak the chassis and make things go out of square. And it's telling you that we're going to need the shims to do this. It's asking you to loosen the thumb screws, which we did earlier. It's easier to do that with the build plate off to make sure that they're all the way down without having the thumb screws fall out. So now the print head is moved over here, which corresponds to being above the first thumb screw. And we're going to do this 3 times to level the print bed. We're now going to use the shims to adjust the Z bed offset. And the way that you do this is you take the shim and you slide it between the build plate and the rear nozzle, which is the plastic nozzle. And when you do that, you're going to take this thumb screw and adjust it up to the point where you kind of pinch it between the 2. The term that Markforged likes to use is slight resistance. They want to see a slight resistance in this shim when you are sliding it back and forth. However, I have this thumb screw up all the way and I do not have a slight resistance. So what I'm going to need to do is run the Z-bed offset utility and manually adjust this whole plate up just a little bit. This may or may not happen to you when you first get your machine, but it is not uncommon from what I've seen so far. So I'm going to show you how to do that next. So since that didn't quite work out for us, we're going to cancel out of this menu. And it tells us that we canceled it. We're going to go back here, go to bed level, run the adjust Z, and like it says, you do this when you don't have enough travel on thumb screws. So we're going to hit continue, and you need to be careful doing this because you can bump it up high enough to where the print heads hit the print bed and you can dent the print bed, which you don't want to do. Okay, so now we're going to do the same thing that we just did, except it wants us to remove the print bed. And push it down a little bit and pull it out. Next. And we need to loosen these back up. Just like we did before. Loosening these thumb screws so that these are flush. And again, don't loosen them up so that they fall out. You'll probably do that, and it sucks. And put the bed back in. Trust me, I'm doing that. Hit next. And it was too far away. So now we're going to do the same thing, which I'm going to zoom out and show you how that works. So if you remember from that last screen, you now have the option to manually bump up and down the Z height of the build plate. It lets you go in 0.1 millimeter increments. Now something to watch out for is to make sure that your fiber head doesn't end up being lower than your print head. And you can do that by taking your plastic shim, and if you have more drag on your fiber than on your plastic, then you want to go ahead and adjust the Z height of the fiber nozzle, which you're not really supposed to do until a later step, but you can't get past this step if you don't have that out of the way. So I'll show you how to do that quick. Up on the top here, there is a small Allen screw right here. So you want to take this with the included wrench and back this out until you've got enough clearance. This may or may not need to be done depending on how your machine came from the factory, but if it's too low, you'll want to go ahead and adjust that. Now going back down here, I'm going to go back to my plastic shim. And the way I like to do this is I like to bump this up just to the point where it's almost got it pinched. Which, as you can see here, if you don't get it just right under there, it'll buckle. So that means I've got it pretty close. So then I'm going to back it off 2 clicks. That'll give me room to adjust the thumb screws up. Since we can't go any lower with the thumb screws, I want to make everything go up. So now I'm going to hit the save button. It says it's saving offset, please wait. It says the offset is saved. You may now lower the print bed by hand. Press done to exit. So we're going to do that. Press done. And that brings us back out to the main menu. Now we're going to go back in bed level and do the shim bed level utility. And now we're back where we started before, where it warns us to not lean or push on the chassis anywhere. And tells us that we need the shims to lower the thumb screws, which we've already done. And now slide the plastic shim, which the shims actually say plastic shim and fiber shim on them. We take the plastic shim, slide it in, and adjust the thumb screw up to a point where we've got a slight resistance. Markforged has done a very good job of making this system fairly error-proof. They've taken care of a lot of things, but this is the one part that I can tell that really requires some finesse. And I'm going to call that good. So now it's going to move on to the next thumb screw. And we will do this again. This one gets a little tricky because it's all the way in the back. Again, I like to pinch it just a little bit so that I know where my max height should be and then back it off slightly from there. So now it's going to come back around and do it again. Since we've adjusted 3 points in the plane, it may have affected this original one, so we're going to do this again. This becomes a fine tune at this point, or at least should. Now, it's asking us to slide in the fiber shim. So we're going to repeat the same basic process, but we're only going to do it once. And the reason that this needs to be done is because there's no way to adjust the bed to the fiber nozzle. So basically we're going to adjust the fiber nozzle to the print head. So we're going to use again the fiber shim, and we're going to be going off of the nozzle in front, which is the fiber nozzle, and going back to what we did before, adjusting this socket head cap screw at the top. We're going to tighten it up to drop it down. And what that is going to do is get us closer to the bed. You kind of want it to be kind of tight because that head actually smashes the fiber down into the plastic to make sure that it seats good. I'm going to hit next. And it's telling us to, it tells us to actually adjust that Allen screw. And it says to use the two shims to check both nozzle heights one last time. We can retry it, or we can hit next. It gives us the option for retry next and skip. I don't remember exactly what happens if I hit next. Okay, so now this is where we're going to print the calibration staircase. Except we're not going to print the staircase, and that's because I don't have any plastic loaded in it because of the reasons that we talked about before. So now I'm going to go through and run the load plastic and fiber utilities, and then after that we'll print the staircase and show you how that works. So now we're going to load this package of Onyx into the dry box and through the tube and into the printer, and then we're going to run the load plastic utility. You want to be careful not to cut too deep and into your Onyx There may actually be a better way to do this. I wasn't paying close enough attention. And here's your spool. So now, as we talked about earlier, painter's tape, again, is your friend to keep the spool from unwinding on you. Going to need to take the spool out of the metal. Again, printed on a Markforged printer, which I think is really cool. And they had stopped the print to embed these magnets so it sticks together. Now, something to keep in mind about these materials, the plastic and the nylon and the onyx, is that they do not like to be out in the atmosphere for very long. They will absorb moisture and give you bad prints. So we're going to do this as fast as we can. What we want to do is we want to find the end of the spool here. Take it out of there. It broke off, which is normal. That is good because that means it's good and dry. I'm going to break off any little bent edges. And take this whole spool, drop it down into the carrier. I'm actually not going to need that painter's tape at this point because I'm going to go ahead and feed this up through the tube in the back. But before we get too carried away, we want to take this package of desiccant and throw it in here. That came in the Onyx pack. And we're going to continue to feed this up. And you want to make sure to not unroll too much of this because it'll get kinked and not want to unreel. It's actually a good idea at this point to maybe tape this down so it can't get away from you. And if we go over here, looking inside the machine, you can see the end of our onyx right there. If I had a third hand, this would be easier, but you can see me feed that up to there. So now that we've got that in there all the way, we can take off this piece of tape because that shouldn't be going anywhere. Try to keep that snug. And you're going to want to latch your dry box. And when you do this, it should click twice. Clicks once and then a second time. And that makes sure that your plastic will stay nice and dry. So now we're going to run the load plastic utility. That is under materials. And I was under the impression that the Onyx Pro would also run nylon. This is not giving me the option to do that. I'm going to have to check on that at a later time. Doesn't really matter because all I have is onyx, and from everything I've heard, it's better than nylon anyway. So we're going to say load plastic. It had the O icon for onyx. This screen right here gives you the option to do a quick load or a meter load. Eiger has the ability to measure out how much material you have used at any given time on a given spool. So if you're switching back and forth between your materials and you've got a partial spool, you would use a meter load. I've got a brand new one, so I'm going to use the quick load. And it is now heating up the fiber nozzle. Sorry, plastic nozzle. So we do not have any leftover filament because this is our first go with this. Onyx. What's next? Now it's wanting to pull plastic through the extruder right here. So you may need to push in and pull out on this tube, which is easier if you're using two hands and not holding a cell phone trying to take a tape of it. So when you can take that back out, you can expose a little bit of this material, and it makes it easier for you to pull it and put it straight into this extruder wheel right here. And you should see it feeding through, and there it goes. So you want to reattach that tube, and we're going to pull this down a little bit. And when we see Onyx coming out of there, we're going to press stop. And you can actually see it coming through the top here. It should be coming out here in 1 second. And we'll press stop. And I need to get that excess plastic off of there. And you're going to hit done. So the handy tweezers that come with the machine, this is what these are for. I'll pull it off there. It doesn't look like much, but it's the first print out of this machine. So now that we got the plastic loaded, we are going to load the fiberglass material. And to do that, open this up. This material does not have an issue with the atmosphere and absorbing moisture, so we don't have to worry about that. But something to keep in mind is that it will unrail on you very, very easily. I'm not sure if unrail is the right word for it, but it will come off of this spool and make a big mess. You can imagine fishing line is very similar to that. So again, got a piece of painter's tape. This is the tape that came with it. We're going to get those off of there. Try to hold on to this to keep everything nice and tight. Tape that down. It's going to go back here in the back. We're going to push the plate down. There's a little plug that comes off. And then it's going to go right up here into this feed tube in the back. So let's see how that goes. So at this point, we're going to push the build plate down, remove this magnetic plug, and load here. Start feeding it up through the tube. Once you get that started, snap the plug back in place. Start feeding through the tube. You may get some kinks in it. Remove your tape. Keep a hold of it, keep it from coming apart on you. So it will still do that. The end of this is so bent up that I'm going to cut that off and start over again. And it will go up in there. Well, back here, I'm gonna go materials, wood fiber. I'm gonna do a quick load of fiberglass. And you may be able to hear that motor. Grab it. And it caught it, and as you can see, it's pulling it through. It's telling us to press this cut button when we see it coming out. You should see it here in just a second. There it is, and I got a bunch of kinks in it. I'm gonna hit cut, and this fiber loading complete. Remove excess fiber from nozzle and tube. Got that. That's it done. So at this point, we're going to run the bed level utility, which prints out a little staircase, and as the print head swipes across, the fiber nozzle will hit some of them and not others. And when you see that stripe going across the correct ones, you'll know you've got things set up correctly. So we're going to go in here, and we're going to hit utilities, test prints, print level test. And since I've been moving things around, it's going to take a little bit to warm up. So I should say at this point that you may or may not need to use Elmer's glue with this Onyx material. For this stair step, it's not going to be necessary. I've heard from some of the guys at Markforged that you can a lot of times get a good print without using the Elmer's glue. You didn't hear that from me. Use that advice as at your own discretion, but I'm not going to be using it here for this test print. So it's getting a little late. I wasn't paying close enough attention. Took off on me, but it is printing out the test print to check the bed level and the nozzle alignment. It's going to print 3 pads around the outside that should all end up being about the same thickness, and it's going to, it is not the one I thought it was. This is not the stair step. We will try that in a minute. So what the bed level test does is prints out these little dots, and every one of them should be roughly the same thickness, and it looks like they are, and they should have a good surface finish to them, and it looks like they do. And we need to check the adhesion. For that, we need to use the Markforged issued putty knife. I'll take this off and scrape them. All of these turned out very consistent. On to the next. So that means that we do have the bed leveled. So the reason I hit the wrong thing before is because the staircase printout is kind of confusing the way you need to find it. It doesn't follow kind of the rest of the conventions that Markforged has for printing stuff out. So you're here to bed level, adjust fiber nozzle height, print staircase. And that is going to start heating up the nozzle. So it's now printing out a purge line to make sure all the material that comes out for the staircase is in good shape after having sat in the tubes over here. And the screen says it takes about 16 minutes to print, so we'll come back after that. So it looks like we're done printing. We'll scrape this off and see what the results are. So what it's asking us to do is to clean off the fiber nozzle if there's any plastic on it, which it does not appear that there is. So now we're going to hit next, and it's going to swipe that nozzle right over this, right over the top of what it just printed. And it says that it should leave a mark on the 0, 1, and 2 step. And from what I can see, there's a mark on 1 and 2. So we are going to adjust the fiber nozzle down just a hair. And hit next and have it do it again. And it's looking like I should do that one more time. Let's take this off and see what it looks like. So what we've got here is these 3 little lines right here. And what that's showing is that the fiber nozzle is down low enough to swipe across those. Now I'm supposed to see it on this 0, but I'm not seeing it, so I'm going to drop it down just a hair and I'm going to call it good because I think it's very, very close. It's hard to tell, it's kind of hard to see unless you really know what you're looking for, but you can see that those 3 horizontal drag marks are not on the -1 and the -2 layers, and it needs to be just a little bit more on the 0 layer. So hopefully that gives you an idea of how easy it is to set up these machines. Markforged has done a very good job of making this system easy to set up right out of the box. There's really only one part that takes a little bit of feel, and that's the shim usage on the bed leveling. But it's really not that tough, and it really comes into play if you are trying to hold tight tolerances on your 3D prints. If you're not doing that, it's going to be less of a concern. Hopefully we're going to have some very cool things coming off of this machine in the very near future, and we'll have some videos to follow. Again, my name is Adam Homan, sales engineer for Integrated Machinery Systems. We are your value-added reseller for Markforged 3D printers in Indiana and Illinois. Thanks a lot.